7 o'clock, so I'm going to call the meeting to order. And Wallingford Planning Board, first item on the agenda is a major site plan review for Ralph A. Phipps, very ably represented by Attorney Chris Weiskel. Does it call you Chris? You call me John.
Please.
All right, so please.
Don't look over my shoulder
Let's
for
see.
that, you know.
Can you spell your last name for me?
W-Y-S-K-I-E-L. From Dover, New Hampshire. Good evening. Someone describe it, comment. I don't know if you've all read my application cover letter with the application, together with a request for certain waivers. I'll just summarize. Briefly, Ralph has a 12-acre lot on Turgeon Way for some 10 years or so, or longer. Yeah, he's been conducting Phipps landscaping business out there, which last fall we confirmed through Tom, and I visited this board in October, confirmed that was a permitted agricultural use.
Be right back. Just want to get our
So we're here for site review because we're going to add a structure to that existing legal use. That's all we're doing. So this plan that was submitted, drawn by Adam Fogg of Atlantic Survey, depicts the property with its topography, wetlands as depicted, and it was done by civil consultants at the time Turgeon Way was subdivided as a subdivision lot. The rear section is not done. That was in October. I came in and said we would be requesting certain waivers. In essence, I've tried to abbreviate my waiver requests so as not to go through your design standards site thing by thing. There's a lot of precise design requirements to be met here, and basically what I've asked is for Ralph to be excused from any design standards that would require him to submit anything in addition to what we have, primarily because we think you have plenty here to make the decision. Nothing is changing this back area of the lot. It's significant to show the topography, wetlands of the existing area, the topography in the vicinity of the building to be added, and the septic behind that will be changed by Adam Fogg in his septic approval plan, which was also submitted, shows how the topography will change. This is a septic system that has been approved by the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services. So those recontoured lines we brought forward onto the site plan. So to request the waivers, you have in your ordinance, and the provisions I've cited, Article Roman 4, Section 1, my letter lists the criteria to be met. I have generally described them. But to recap, for purposes of people here present listening to this, we need to establish that granting the waiver to be excused from showing other standards will not be detrimental to the public health, safety, and general welfare. Granting it is in the opinion of the board upon a majority vote, after motion duly second, not injurious to other parties. That it will not have the effect of nullifying the intent and purpose of the zoning ordinance and subdivision regulation chapters that we are designing to. That strict compliance with the regulations would cause hardship to the applicant because of the physical characteristics of the land. And that by granting the waiver, you would find that there's a substantial public benefit. No one's going to be harmed by not requiring the design standards I summarily addressed in the balance of my letter, to do, for instance, a traffic impact study, a high-intensity soil survey, to map the topography, or to prove there are no wetlands in this hillside area, because nothing's being changed or touched out there. The emphasis of this site plan is right here. We show you the information that's there, so it's not detrimental to the public health, safety, and welfare of the community that the design standards seek to protect, not injuring anybody by not doing that work, not doing a lighting plan, or requesting, just because the nature of the agricultural use, landscaping is commercial in nature. For example, your site design requirements require sidewalks, paved driveways, and things like that. It has to be excused from that because it's a gravel way. That's preferable for the site. It's better, for drainage and all that. And there's no sense to do all those things. the physical characteristic of the land is its sheer size, given all we're doing is adding a house. Its size to require all those additional things that aren't necessary for you to properly consider these things is a hardship unique to the land. And I think there's a substantial benefit in granting the waiver because hopefully it will result in the approval and the building of this structure that will accommodate housing for one of your citizens and clean up a business use. One of the things I did in submitting the application was I submitted copies of cell phone pictures I took when I was on the site with Ralph, and I prepared so they made sense to you, a bit of a photo log. It's a reduced photocopy of this plan with numbered, circled numbers corresponding to my labeling of the photographs submitted to those numbers with an arrow, as if you were standing on the site in a circle, facing the direction I faced when the picture was taken. So you're looking at a map that I submitted, that's the tax map, that we color-coded just to help the town verify that we in fact included all the abutters in our notice provisions. So we had to compile a list anyway, so I probably went through, make sure we called up everybody, so we figured, to show you how we did it, and just color-coded the map and picked everyone in.
Richard,
So this is a.
I'm sorry to interrupt you,
go ahead.
but I think there's only one copy of the pictures,
wasn't
so
gonna
we'll make our way around.
Really?
I didn't see it.
So let me, if it'll help, let me go through them, and I'll hold them up because I have a copy, and I'll reference to that. So what I did was just to, two reasons for my doing the photo was to, demonstrate that these are the existing conditions on site, and help you understand it. And also, since we're saying we're not changing anything about it, and assuming you will approve this plan, I'm creating a record of sorts to say, this is what's there now, so that a future board doesn't come in and say, well, the use has been expanded improperly without a permit and stuff like that. Ralph and I talked about it, said that's fine. So picture number one is as if I'm standing in Ralph's driveway looking at the cul-de-sac of Turgeon Way. And I'm just depicting how there's a gravel driveway. Picture two, I'm walking up the driveway and I'm looking in the vicinity of the well. And you can see the well's out in this little structure out there. Picture three is I'm coming up the driveway and just showing you how the gravel driveway exists. It forks over to Mr. Armin Turgeon's property, these cement block structures that are on site. Ralph, those are actually on Armin's property, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, and Ralph uses them and stuff, but they're not on site, but the driveway comes close to that, so they're right over here. And then the driveway continues going up into the primary site that Ralph uses, and up and beyond where this mulching area work is being done, I'll get to in a minute. So four, just heading further up the driveway. So you have, I don't know, have members been to the site? Anybody?
I have.
No? To the extent you haven't, you're getting a little bird's eye, driveway view now. Five on the log is taken just as I'm turning into the driveway into the area primarily used now by Ralph in his landscaping business. And you can see that in, let me get a different pointer. This tree-lined area that Adam has shown shows the cleared area, and this is primarily all gravel. A few additional trees will be cut here to make the septic system go in and to accommodate, the extra fill that will go in. So as you come into this gravel area, there's a wooden storage shed here, which is depicted on these photos, and just next to them are some other storage bins built out of temporary cement blocking, so he can put stand material, mulch and stuff. Ralph actually says some of the, let me get ahead of myself, I'll recap. Photo number 6 is just a photograph. If I was in the middle of the driveway, you would still see this wooden shed on my left-hand side. I'm looking back to the rear part of the site. And you can see Ralph's got a few box trailers in the vicinity where his structure will be that he uses for storage now. A couple of those will be moved neatly over next to the wooden structure and then the cement thing, so we can have some additional storage. A lot of the other vehicles and a couple of some trailer that's there now, it's intended to be removed because the structure that will be, that will be built will accommodate storage for the landscaping business as well as his residence. So 7 is just a view, if I'm standing here, looking back at that storage area. 8, I'm way back in front of where the house would be, just to show these box trailer and a vehicle that's gonna be moved, the trailers will now be over here. 9, where am I 9? Oh, 9, I'm looking back this way. So opposite that wooden storage and the cement storage areas is just a hanging thing where you can hang a piece of equipment that you're on your truck, your sanders or something like that. All that stuff will stay and just remain on site. Then on picture 10, I'm heading up the driveway, and I'm just showing the rest of the site so you can see the existing use. None of it's gonna change. Where Ralph and his crew bring in stuff from, materials from other sites, or they churn this up and they make mulch. There are piles out there. And the sequence photos just take you through that back area. So that's that. The request for waivers, my copy of your design criteria are all marked up in pen. So I was thinking, why do we have to do this? So on pages 3 and 4 of my letter, I've just tried to summarily say, there's really no need for this. So we're asking to be excused from a high-intensity soil survey. That would be important to do if you're proposing a new type of use. Would it injure the land or whatever? This use has been ongoing, and the house is gonna be on a gravel site anyways. And the new septic is gonna be built in an area that DES has already approved as being appropriate for the site. The driveway crosses the wetland in this area. There's a culvert that's been there for 10 years. Lighting, the only lighting that's gonna be, it will be on the structure itself, correct? So there's no separate lighting underground, utilities required, since the building process will have to go through an inspection and permitting process in the town. Lighting will have to go through an approval process there, no need to demonstrate it more clearly here, in my opinion. And traffic impact analysis, the agricultural use, will be maintained, traffic's not gonna be changed, except for the incremental increase of Ralph coming back and forth to his house, which is minimal in a residential subdivision anyway, so there's no need to do a complete traffic study to demonstrate that. Driveway, vehicular, and pedestrian access, there's no need to demarc that on a plan and make absolutes, because this is just a commercial that trucks come in, people park, they move them depending what they're loading and offloading. There's plenty of parking space. The plan shows how you could easily park 4 vehicles in this area. You have what, 4 or 5 trucks?
Yes.
And 4. Yeah, and he's got plows that he puts down, employees come and go, and then they leave at night. There's more than adequate area for parking, for snow loading, to move this thing. The additional house not gonna change that. So I don't request that we have an absolute parking design, because it's gonna be in flex daily as people move around anyways. Plenty of room for loading, snow removal. Pedestrian circulation, people just come to the site and leave the site, and they come back at the end of the day, or they come and move things in. Lighting, I address. Storm drainage. We don't have a separate storm drainage plan because the septic has been approved for drainage there. Everything else is existing and works. The house will have whatever drainage is getting approved during the course of building plans, and the site otherwise not changing. Utilities, you're just gonna have your utilities brought in, what, underground? Underground, and then there'll be a well connection to the structure. No other utilities besides that. So landscaping, we don't have a landscaping plan because this is out in the middle of a wooded area. I took a aerial photography from Google Earth. I do have copies, I can pass these around so you don't have to look. This is small. I'll wait till everyone has a copy and I'll orient you. So on this map, you can see the Turgeon Way that ends in a round circle, and you can see the Ralph's driveway that comes in from that, and 2 little white trailers that then there exist. The area in the vicinity of his house, the house will be right where those 2 box trailers are shown from this aerial view. Everything's surrounded by trees anyways, that's a natural buffer. And then the large expensive expanse of field where the mulching operations here and all that. I mean, there's no need for a separate landscaping design and buffer. Your design requirements, you know, your design criteria and your site review regulations require that. You know, but admittedly, if I was doing an in-town lot and wanted to screen buffers, that would be much more important than out here on Turgeon Way. Patient restrooms. What do you have, a porta potty on set now?
Yes.
Yeah, so the new structure is gonna have restrooms for the work area as well as for the house. So that's an improvement, and, you know, do we pick them? No, because they're internal to the structure and part of the building plans. Solid waste recycling disposal, the house will have a septic system, garbage, take care of it in town like everybody else does. And the business, I'm not gonna, I don't know how to speak to that. Do you have waste or,
I have a dumpster there that comes every week, they empty it.
I'll continue, right?
Yes.
Yep. There are no historic sites or structures on site, and section 17 of design criteria is water supply, we have a well on site, nobody hooked up to the house. So, I'd entertain questions. I think the application is complete, could be found that way. I request that someone move to make a motion to grant the waivers we seek, so that we don't have to submit anything else, that you approve that and approve the site plan. But I'll be quiet for a moment. If there are any questions?
First, if I could, I'd like to ask our very able technical advisor, Tom Clark, if you have any comments.
I have a few. One of the requirements in the existing site conditions, and I think you pointed to them, there are structures that are existing that will remain.
Right.
Is there a reason they're not depicted?
Because they're temporary in nature, except for the two wooden structures that I've chosen to try to depict by picture instead of on the plan, because I was trying to get at them, to add those to those things, and, you know, we didn't. So I think between the two, the board could make a finding that the two wooden structures are gonna stay. The cement structures, those are blocks that can be changed. And
Okay. I thought you said the cement things were on Mr. Turgeon's lot.
two are when you first enter, but, so let me show you in a photo.
It's full of firewood.
Yeah.
It's on his land.
6 and 7, Tom. So
Oh,
here's
right,
the
right,
structure.
right.
It's gonna stay. I don't have it on the plan, you know, but you could say the structure shown in this picture, the cement things are gonna be there. These things that are shown in picture 7, the cement block things, it can literally be moved at any time and rebuilt.
That I agree with, but the wooden ones that are gonna stay, they're gonna remain part of the operation, right?
Yeah.
It'd be kinda nice to know where they were, I mean, on the plan.
It could be
But-
added to a plan before it was finally signed as a condition, I suppose. You know, they couldn't. Picture, number 5 is a
Well,
better picture
okay.
of that too.
Right, I guess it's up to the board to
It
decide,
is.
I mean, that's staying, that's part of the operation. It seems to me it should be on the site plan,
And there's a wooden structure on the opposite
Yeah.
side where they, in that too. I mean,
and that's gonna stay, yeah. I
Goose
mean,
and
Adam
gander.
has this computer, right, I mean, he can
Yep,
put anything on that he wants.
yes.
Up to the board, though, I mean,
This
if
wooden
it's
structure just sitting on these
Blocks.
things. Blocks.
right,
And we weren't really sure that it's gonna stay. I mean, it's gonna stay for the short term. It may get rid eventually. But again, it's something that we can move around.
I think it depends on how the board feels. I don't think it's a huge issue. I mean, it is part of the regulations, that you have to indicate which structures are to be retained and which are to be removed. You know, if the board understands what's going on and if the pictures in combination with the site plan are sufficient.
Kevin, please.
I had noticed them too, that they seem to be appearing on those Jersey barriers or whatever you wanna call the concrete blocks that they sit on, and those concrete blocks are simply set on the earth, there's no pad
Correct.
underneath those, and these posts themselves, those are not sunk into any sort of concrete
No,
ball
they're
as well.
just dug in.
So personally, I would have some leniency to the fact that because they are a non-attached structure with no permanent base.
And I think I probably should have prefaced my own comment with, I mean, the question may be, why is Ralph have to do this, is Since the business has been around for so long, it's simply because of the building that he wants to put on it. In the site review regs, it's development of a non-residential nature, so it has to come to site review. So it is different, I think, in that it has been around for a long time. And there certainly are buildings there that have been used, and if we, I mean, we think we have just a good idea, a good understanding of what's gonna be removed, and, you know, I mean, the site's gonna be cleared up.
There's a lot of metal around there that Ralph's just gonna clean up in the
Okay.
process.
It's
I mean,
gonna
that
go.
stuff's, a lot of that's gonna go.
Yeah.
Ralph can speak to that. So the structures, yeah, Adam, can you show them? And then Ralph said, well, the cement things, we might move them, they're temporary, might add another one if we need it. So I'm thinking, if it's shown, Tom, on the plan, it's sort of locked in, and what, do I have to come back and do another one? So those are temporary in nature. You know, the wooden one, yeah, it's more of a structure, but it's not, so I thought we could either add it to the plan, or I think in your findings, you can say that, which was one of the reasons I tried to submit the photo log, to
Yeah.
show
Yeah.
these are some existing, these can stay
Yeah.
in the nature of structures, or, the cement things can be,
Sure.
change, so that you do have a record, say, it's like, where did these other six come from?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's up to the boards, right?
I understand, no, I don't disagree.
Yeah, and we talked about the traffic, I understand a waiver
Tom?
request.
Oh, excuse me,
I'm sorry.
Caroline
Can
had a
I just
question.
interrupt you to follow up on the building
Oh,
conversation?
Right, sure.
The wooden structure, and it looks like you have like two side by side, a bigger and a smaller one. Do you store salt? And do either of those structures store salt? I think it would be important to note that on the plan for stormwater purposes. Because according to our stormwater permit, it's just the law that's, salt has to be housed. It's a way to document that we've reviewed that and we are ensuring that the salt is housed.
So you do, so, I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
Yeah,
You
there's
sort of-
salt in there, that's,
So you could specify.
that's why the building's there. You keep my
Yeah.
salt, from getting-
You could specify that you approve any salt would be in the storage structure, shown on photo 5 or something.
However the board wants to do it, I just think it's important to document the requirement that salt be housed. It looks like you're meeting that.
Yeah, good point.
How the board wants to do that, they can
When we say
discuss.
document, do we mean as part of the approval, we add a condition that the salt be properly housed in accordance with the applicable stormwater provisions?
Yes, I would say so.
That sounds good.
And Tom, before we move on, I want to ask if, Sue, do you have any questions about this issue or comments?
I agree about, storing salt. Yeah, it does sound like it should happen.
Richard, do you have any comments about the wooden structures and whether they should be shown on the plan or not?
No, I don't think they need to be, because I think they're portable in nature. You can move them rather easily and conveniently. I do agree with the salt process, though. I think that should be, I think there should be something said about that.
And Tom, let me ask you this, in terms of, not requiring a whole new, that the site plan be redrawn to show the two structures, if we don't require that, are there any implications if Mr. Phipps or a future landowner, the property comes forward in the future and asks for expansion or whatever, are there any implications from that?
Well, I think what we would do is, we keep the whole thing as an approved site plan to include the photo log. And if anyone were to come, they would look through everything and see that. So I think if we consider it complete as part of the application, I don't think it needs to be. I think that's entirely at the board's discretion to have those little buildings put on there.
Okay. Please continue with your next comment.
Now, when I think about it though, what is that existing structure that, does this say there, barn?
It's an existing barn
So is that, as you drive in, it's on the left-hand side?
It's on the right, as you drive in.
in front of the well.
Oh, okay, so
It's
the
right
one,
there, you drive right
Yeah.
close to it.
so the one on the left is probably on Mr. Church's lot
Yes.
also? Oh, okay, so that's not, okay. that wasn't clear when we were out there. Okay,
And there's only one building, the other
Yeah.
things are cement, Jersey barriers that we move, you know, we need to store some gravel or some loam or something, and those things kind of, there's 3 or 4 of them, and they just kind of get moved as we need to. In the winter time, we need the space, and we don't use the gravel, so we change them around a bit, but they're very easily moved.
Tom, if I can, in my photo two, of course, I was just trying to show the vicinity with how it was. The side of that shed is shown here. See, the driveway comes up here and it's there.
Oh, okay,
Driveway comes
okay.
up there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I mean, I don't know what you use that for, though.
That's just storage, it's,
Yeah,
that was originally, that was there when I walked away.
oh. Vintage.
Vintage, that's a good word for that.
When you say storage, what do you store?
Equipment.
Or just
I have all kinds of, that's the other thing, I really need to get up there, I have a lot of equipment, it's just, and there's nobody there. You know, the neighbors are real good, but and somebody needs to be there.
So along those lines, kind of segue into the next comment, I agree about the traffic analysis. I mean, the change is gonna be minimal, but could you provide a narrative of the types of vehicles that you use that do go up there? I mean, it's primarily, you got pickup trucks,
One
front
time,
end loaders,
yeah, there's a truck that hauls, there's a mowing crew, pickup truck, trailer,
Trailer.
mowers. And then there's a couple of one-ton dump trucks that haul a piece of equipment to a job site.
Yeah.
And they're back and forth, I mean, during the day, occasionally. When they go out in the morning, they usually go on for the day.
so the large machinery on site pretty much stays on site just to move around the mulch or your materials.
Yes, but there is equipment that we take out up to job sites
Also,
also.
well, we need any more detail than that, we can just have it itemized. You know, just to document what type, not to limit, we're not saying not to limit the traffic or anything, just so that we know what's going up there.
There are no 18-wheelers driving in that driveway.
No,
So Tom, are you saying that you want to make a narrative or portion of the record in regard to creating an amount of use that would be allowed now versus expansion of use, or just that we consider this issue?
I think just to consider what it is that's going up there now, not to limit them, and not to, you know, provide a cap on it or anything like that, just so that we know what's, the types of vehicles that are gonna be used there.
Okay, so how do we put that into the record, or we talked about using a photo log, using that record, how do we do that?
I think we ask for the applicant and or his representative just to submit, you know, just a written log. Or written, just a list.
You could
Just
add
a list
as
of
a
vehicles.
condition of approval that the applicant, you know, you have to be me, submit a letter indicating that the vehicles and equipment presently used. I would confirm with Ralph what that is, send it in, you check the mark-off conditions and that is what I suggest.
We could review it, Caroline and I, before we ask you to sign the plan.
Caroline, I think you had a comment, please?
I just wanted to add that I think a narrative's a really good idea, but I would add employees to that and basic function of employees to somehow document the existing business, the function that's going on and the extent to which it's going on, just because it hasn't been through this process, just so that we can document what's going on right now. More broadly than the vehicles, but to
Yeah.
include the vehicles.
Yeah.
Again, with the same caveat Tom adds, that it's not intended to limit the employees. I mean, if Ralph gets so busy that he's got another 2 guys sitting in a pickup truck on his mowing crew, would prefer not to have to come in for a change of use plan because we got 2 employees, and it's really not affecting the
Well,
site. you know?
I agree with that in principle, but I wouldn't wanna say it's a carte blanche either. At some point, you know, a non-conforming use expands.
True, yeah.
So I don't know what the line is with that, but my intent in asking it is just to document the current
Yeah, in other matters I've delved into, I mean, our Supreme Court's even written about that, or you have a right to reasonably expand a non-conforming use. At some point across the line, that's change use. You know, when you see that, that's why we have land use boards.
Kevin, you wanted to have a
And
comment?
just to clarify too as well, similar to types of vehicles that you operate within your business, also if you're purchasing supplies, i.e. tractor trailer loads of mulch or flatbeds of fertilizer, all of deliveries that you receive for wares for your business also are delivered in the same type of vehicles that you use in amongst your day, being the dump trucks, the heavy dump trucks. Is there any fuel delivery or to your, any vehicles coming with fuel that fuel your vehicles or
No.
fill any tank for fuel storage on site?
Well, there is a small diesel tank. It's like 50 gallons. But everything else, there's no gas, there's no fuel.
Like a 50-gallon, just a drum, just a,
No, it's a specialized tank.
with containment,
No, we're under that,
50 gallons.
50 gallons. And we did that purposely.
Is that what?
You don't see it here.
Sort of loads the
Yeah,
vehicle
this
at number
the
7.
excavator, and I've got a backhoe up there, and
Yeah.
tractors, bobcats. And most of that is just, there's one machine that stays on site. And the rest of the machines are moving all the time.
And they're fueled when they're out in the field, they
Yes, they
stop
fuel
someplace,
with
get
gas.
fueled, there's not fueled on site.
No.
Good question.
Yeah,
I have a quick question, and I mean, recognize Sue in a quick second. This occurred earlier, is there any implications for the storage of salt in the well on the property? No?
Where it's a private well, I
Okay,
don't believe so.
okay, thanks. Sue, you had a question?
so with that 50-gallon tank for diesel, but it's not full, I just, why do you have it? I
To
mean,
fuel up that machine that doesn't leave the site.
that doesn't leave the site,
Yeah.
okay.
And, you know,
How do you fill that tank, Ralph?
if we take it and put it on a dump truck,
Bring it to the
take it to the gas station,
Bring it
fill it
back.
up, yeah.
Okay.
It's on
That's
a,
good.
permanently mounted on a skid.
Yeah, yeah, I don't need to,
No,
may as well know.
Yeah.
Another good question.
Richard, any questions on this part of it?
I don't.
Tom, I think you were going to segue into something else.
You mentioned utilities, underground water, what about electrical?
it's underground.
Okay, 'cause I thought I heard you say water was the only thing.
No, he will bring, I don't know, where's your power? You have a box,
Right here.
underground box,
Right
right?
out here.
Because the whole, our Tertian Way's underground.
Everything's underground.
Yeah,
yes.
so, you know, and of course, the building permit, you're gonna bring that over to the structure here, and as well line will also be underground.
Yep. And are there any customers that come to your site?
No.
It's just you and your guys?
Yes.
Right, so I was just wondering if there's any requirement to maybe in the larger parking lot, but it, you know, for the number of employees, it doesn't seem like it would be, especially if there are no customers coming.
Okay.
The employees generally park in this area, frankly, if they needed to, they can park on the road, they can park up in this mulch area and just go park here.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much area there,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think that's all I had. What?
I
Yes,
have
Caroline,
one more
please.
comment,
Oh.
I just wanted to throw out there, which is that you're referencing the subdivision of 2006. The most recent FEMA floodplain map is 2015. The brook that runs around that property is listed on that flood map that Tom's pulling out here. So I'm just concerned, it's not clear that you are or are not encroaching on the 50-foot wetland setback from what might be a more accurate representation
Yeah,
of
the
the
brook's not
wetlands.
on my property.
Well, but,
It
so,
is always more than 50 feet, but
so, you know, maybe even if, you can help Tom see where that is on that map, you know, if it's really clear, then it's really clear, I'm just having
This
a
is the zone area, the flood zone that we're talking about, and the tributary, here's Turgeon Way.
yeah.
And then it goes up, and this is all your stuff, so
Right.
it's close proximity, but certainly we can't tell. but you're certain it's more than 50 feet.
Oh, yes, yeah.
And since you bring it up, the wetland delineation also relies upon that 06 plan, and it looks like it's mostly a result of the culvert. Has Adam been out there to look at that, or he just transposed it?
He pretty much did an overlay.
Yeah,
He was
From
at
civil
the
consultants,
Oh,
but he
yeah.
didn't do the property, yeah.
yeah.
So we were trying through our waiver, I mean, in October, I was gonna ask that we not be obliged to show wetlands. Then, as a waiver, then Adam contacted civil consultants, and they were able to marry up their plans with topo and all that, and then he further married in his
Yeah,
new contours to the subject.
See, that's the cul-de-sac, and my property is even
Excuse me.
quite a ways from the brook. Can you see that?
yeah.
My place is about right there. Well, no, it's right there, it shows it.
Okay. It looks far enough out to me.
Okay.
Yeah, this would be all on the right-hand side as you're driving in, turning away you show the swale that we saw. That's all that Zone A stuff.
Okay.
That's over here. right, Ralph?
Yeah.
Yeah, which is not even on the plan.
Right.
The wetlands shown on the plan is not part of this blue flood zone area.
No,
That
right.
wetland, that brook's way over here someplace.
Yeah.
But we just wanted to make sure there's a kind of a high degree of confidence that the wetland delineation hasn't changed much since '06.
I'm aware of.
It's fairly minor impact, and I don't think they're high value wetlands. I mean, it's a result of a culvert runoff.
Okay. All right. Any more comments, Tom?
I don't know, did I miss anything else?
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
So now we open it for public hearing. Any members of the public like to comment on the application and the waivers, please feel free to speak. Yes, please, Mr. Meehan, right? Robert
Bob Meehan.
Bob Meehan.
Yep.
I need to have your address too.
We live at 457 Locust Street, but I own the other half of the property. Rolf bought one half of the property, and I brought the other half, my wife and I, from Mr. Churchin. And let me just say, Ralph has been there for about a dozen years. His activity's been going on there the whole time. There's never been a problem. His employees are pretty much the same people that have been there. I'm over there virtually every day moving my heart around. I see them all the time. They come in the morning, they come back late in the afternoon, usually about 6, 7 o'clock sometimes in the summer. There's no noise factor. They're good neighbors. Even the other people that I've talked to in the area, they're very much in favor of this. This has been his plan since the day he bought the place. They're good neighbors. They keep the place nice and clean. They've never had a problem, and I'm downhill from them, and I don't have a problem with anything he's doing. So,
Great.
just
Thank you
for
for your comments. Anybody else like to comment from the public? Yes, please. And state your name and address, please, for the record.
Janet Megan, 457 Locust Street. I agree, I'm not there as much as my husband, but he's always done a great job of keeping things quiet. I have no problem at all with the approval of the plan whatsoever.
Okay, great, thank you very much. Anybody else from the public like to comment? All right, I'm gonna close the public hearing then. And I think at this point, I would entertain a motion to find the application complete.
That would be next, if somebody wishes to do
I would
that.
make that motion.
Okay, second.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed nay. All right, so it's found as complete. So now, we need to vote on whether or not to approve it, and I'm a newer, less experienced chairman, I'm not ashamed to say. Tom, do we need to address the waivers first individually, or
I think in this instance, it wouldn't be out of order to address them collectively.
Okay,
Because, I mean, I think the conditions of the property and the use, they all seem, they make sense to me, those waivers. Like a high-intensity soil and traffic lighting plan, I mean, they're really not conducive to this project, I don't think. So I think if you did it collectively would work with me.
all right, and I'm gonna follow up with a question as to, so we handle that separately from the issues about the salt and about the narrative about
Yes,
the.
yes.
Okay,
Yes, the waivers are a separate subject, yes.
all right. So I would entertain a motion to collectively vote on approval of the waivers requested by the applicant. Someone wants to.
Karen, do you have a question?
Well,
Sure.
so before we do that,
Sure.
one of those waiver requests is the building, and the building pertains to salt, so Walt, I'm not sure that I'm okay with not including those buildings on the plan, even though, so that is one of the waiver requests, and I just wanna put that out there. I think I'm okay with the rest of the waiver requests, but that's, up for the board to decide. So I just throw that out there as you want to deal with them collectively. That I think that there's value in particularly because of salt, I think there's value in separating out that structure and requiring that structure be listed or shown on the plan. I just wanna,
So, my next question will be then, Chris, how difficult would it be for the town, or the board, with one way or the other, to list or identify that structure on the plan? What would that take?
It's not hard for Adam to add.
It's kind of nailing him down.
Yeah, right. So I would just ask that be phrased as a condition, that approved with the condition that the structure be shown, and, if that's with salts to be shown, that be noted on the plan. So that administratively, John, Caroline and Tom can say, yep, it's on the plan, it's okay to sign, and we don't have to come back here for, subsequent board approval for that. I think that's in the nature of a check off the box type of thing.
I agree with that procedurally, but it doesn't make sense to grant the waiver and then issue it as condition of approval.
Unless
So-
you grant the applicant's requested waiver as written in the letter, but for, boom, add your, the adding of that thing. Otherwise, I considered, going through all these waivers piece by piece, and I thought, I'm gonna give you a 30-page letter and you're gonna shoot me. And that's not a good way, so I sort of agree with Tom, as a collective way to do that, and you can just excise from granting it that way, any particular things you wanna change. Make that clear.
You could say, excuse me, to exclude a provision of existing structures, so then we would look for that plan to come in as a condition of approval.
And any members of the board want to comment with this?
I would be okay with it being a condition of approval, as Tom discussed it specifically. I would like to have the further clarification about the 2015 versus the 2006 flood plan. I would like to see something specifically state, as a final condition of approval, not looking to hold anybody up, but also respect the, the way that all of our zoning has been written, and respecting that he runs a very successful business there. I'm very happy to see that he's not looking at adding any impervious paving or anything like that. I'm very happy for that and grateful. But I think I'd like to see a little blurb regarding that change from 2006 to 2015, the floodplain on that brook, specifically, addressing that guaranteed 50-foot setback that we're looking at. But I can be flexible on the salt shed criteria to have it on the final plan before any sort of certificate of occupancy is issued.
Yeah.
As long as it's written, you wouldn't get your C of O without that being addressed, but that allows you the comfort of proceeding with your plans.
So may I clarify my understanding of what you're saying? Because you're talking about the 2015, 2006, that was a distinction of wetland. delineation?
I was more talking about
Just the flood zone?
the flood.
That we are in fact 50 feet away? Can Adam determine that, or is that what you're looking for? Or
Yeah, that's
because-
more what I'm looking at, is when we drew out the flood.
Because, Tom, you're content from what Ralph's pointed out on the plan that we're good enough with that, right?
Do you wanna see it?
Because I don't know what Adam would have to do to verify that, you know? and
I guess if Tom's comfortable with it,
Yeah, I can point it out at the meeting, at the end of the meeting,
Okay.
You do it right now?
or right now. Because the
I
other
didn't
thing,
see that.
I would ask not that we try to delineate a distinction between the 2006 wetland and 15. It's the only way to do that
Maybe
is so the soil
so John
scientists
can
go out
see.
there and flag it. And that's a waiver of request.
But you also make sure you're good with it.
so. Here we are, this is the zone A, flood zone A. And,
Make sure they point it out.
it's,
What's the scale though, I guess is the question.
oh, it's like 1 in 500.
Okay. Oh, an inch equals 500,
Yeah,
okay.
so, here is Sturgeon Way, here's a little cul-de-sac.
It's this right here that we're looking at.
So
Yes.
a tenth of an inch, in other words,
Yes.
is the
Yeah.
wetland
These
setback.
are where those trailers are right now.
Yeah.
This is-
Yeah.
Okay,
And this, you see, is on the other side of Sturgeon Way,
and even here, and the house is actually being positioned
where these two trailers
where
are.
those two trailers are,
Right.
so, okay.
Yeah, so,
And 1 inch is 500.
feet, right.
So a tenth of an
and
inch is
you-
the wetland.
Yeah, you've got a good
Yeah.
quarter there, a good quarter of an inch, so that would be 125, okay.
I don't think you've closed your public hearing yet either. You, Bob, maybe just came up and whispered in my ear that brook is wholly on his property.
That's what, yeah, we're just, yeah, turn it. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
So,
I hadn't saw that before, so now I'm happy.
Now,
to see that.
good to nail it down now.
Yeah,
Instead of
I'm
me
fine
trying
with
to
that.
figure out how to make you happy after.
so I believe we're at the point, and I'm happy to be corrected, where a motion we entertain to grant the waivers with the exclusion of, as a condition of approval, having the structures indicated on the site plan.
Yes.
It's
Mr.
structure,
Salt structure.
just one.
The salt structure.
Yeah.
Right,
Wooden salt structure.
yes, and indicate its use, right? Right.
All right, so, we'll entertain, I don't think I can make a motion myself, right?
It's best that you not, I'll
I
move
guess,
it.
yeah,
I'll make the motion then.
all right. Would there be a second?
Sure, I'll say.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed, nay. The ayes have it. All right. I believe the next issue is the issue about whether there should be, as a condition of approval, a narrative about the number of vehicles and the types of vehicles going in and out of the property on a daily basis, as well as the number of employees.
Right.
Okay.
And I would say a general description of the business.
And a general description of the business. Would someone like to make a motion in regard to that?
Just one quick question, kind of off track. Is there specific hours of business that you have? I know they leave and they come back when the day's work is done, but, and you have no public customers coming there at all, right? It's just simply, okay.
We start at 7 AM, and
They head out.
we finish. It's not really a end of the day type thing.
All right, so, I guess I'm looking for someone to make a motion on.
I'll make a motion regarding the narrative for the types and volume of vehicles.
Employees and business hours.
Yes.
All right, yes, please.
Point of clarification, because I went right. You're gonna approve it. Tom, and I believe some members indicated that the intent of that narrative is not to limit or put a cap on the vehicles employees. So if that could be included in the language to make that clear, I'd appreciate it for him and his, son when he's coming down, so that, one guy, summer guy, someone's not saying, hey, you can't do that.
We're not coming out there and counting.
But it's not a cap, just like the
Yeah.
hours are not preventing the
Yeah.
guy from working late and coming in at 9.
Yep.
It's not looking to be that stringent, I don't think.
So do we add to your language, Kevin, some along the lines of, and Tom, please jump in, that it's not intended to be a limit, but to establish a baseline or something like that, or an average use or
I
dynamic
think
overview?
it's just a matter of, a summary of the current use.
Okay, all right. So is there a second? Second. All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. All right. Before we do an up and down vote on the plan as it stands, is there anything else we need to vote on? Tom?
I don't think so. I mean, we are clear on what the conditions of approval are so that we'll know what to look for when Chris or Alfred is back.
Sarah, for the record, are you clear?
No.
So we,
Could we have Tom
so we
recite
need,
that once again, just so for Sarah's record, that she's clear for the
we need
minutes?
the existing buildings on the site plan with a note of the use of the salt shed.
Right, but you included that in the motion to grant the waiver for the design standard.
I think we excluded that.
Excluded from that from the waiver request.
Okay.
So
then you
not
included
approving
it.
that
Yeah,
waiver.
okay.
Yeah,
So,
And he was saying structure, no S.
one.
So the conditions
Singular.
approved.
And the narrative is a condition of approval. What else is there?
I think that's it.
I had a note, and again, stand to be corrected if I'm wrong, that as conditional approval that the salt be housed in accordance with the applicable
Oh,
stormwater provisions as a conditional approval.
There are none.
There are no,
there are none?
There are none. We
There are
went
none
to
what?
we went to a class about this, and the state's so far behind on this, they're trying to catch up, but they're really having a tough time. There are no standards, I mean, look around.
so there may not be standards now, which obviously would be no prejudice to you. Let's say there's some, and I asked Tom, enacted in the future.
If the state adopts something that's gonna be applicable, it will be applicable here as well. But, and we can research that in the RSA. I personally not aware of it, but,
All right, no, I just don't know.
yeah, what was, when you brought it up about the stormwater runoff, it was in connection with that?
Well, it is, I'm sure, about runoff,
Yeah.
but salt has to be housed. So I don't know that that's a municipal regulation only for our own operations, or if that really pertains to development and monitoring public, private use of salt, whether or not the state covers that or we cover that. But I'm not sure who the officiating entity, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But it's a big deal, so I just want to make sure that we are not approving that until we are making sure that we are doing what we need to be doing about that, because we do have planning regulations. We are required to have planning regulations and have changed our planning regulations so that they are stormwater compliant. And part of that is about managing new development to make sure that it stays in compliance with our evolving permit. And so I would want to make sure that we are staying compliant in our part of this project, managing and approving and inspecting the project. That's about as much as I can say offhand. I haven't looked up
Right.
our regs to say what it says about
So-
private salt storage.
So instead of quoting any regs that may or may not exist, if we just said that the salt, as a condition of approval, the salt had to be housed to prevent runoff.
And then we'll otherwise follow any other state regulations regarding salt
If-
storage.
If we find any.
Well, should they arise, like, he's gonna be, required to be compliant with any future regulations, I guess I would
But
say.
I can see that happening if the state adopts something, and they send out notification to municipalities, and then it would be up to the local enforcing agency to say to Ralph, this just happened, so you have to do this.
And I think you'd have to, I mean. it
Well,
depends.
right.
No,
Yeah.
yeah.
But that would apply to any business in
Right,
Townsend.
right.
I mean, that's a given, that's just gonna be a standard that everyone would have to
Yeah.
abide by if it's state mandated. You'd be no different than
It's true.
anybody,
So it's probably not
so,
necessary.
I mean, with no prejudice, but
So we don't-
everybody's
yeah.
gonna have to abide by it.
Yeah. So I think we
So-
just, oh,
I mean, I just found a fact sheet from the DES, Storage and Management of De-icing Materials from 2019,
Well, that's new. So,
which is saying that that salt should be stored on pads of permeable asphalt or
Oh,
concrete. I mean,
that
it
is
sounds
true.
like there are some.
it's on asphalt. Inside that building, one of the areas is
Okay.
asphalted for the salt.
So there is like a list of things that they say should happen with salt storage.
so what regulation is that you're looking at?
It's an environmental fact sheet from the DES.
It's not a regulation, I don't believe yet.
Yeah, I don't see
It's
that
not
it is.
required.
The best practice fact sheet,
Yeah,
which is different than a law.
Yeah. But it meets that anyway, you're saying?
Pardon?
It meets that anyway, it's on,
Well, it meets that
So the-
one item of this 3 or 4 page fact sheet.
oh, 3 or 4, oh.
I think it's worth checking our regulations to make sure that we are staying compliant with our stormwater permit with regard to what we are requiring applicants to
So,
prove.
okay, so,
I hadn't thought of that.
I think it's a pretty manageable condition of approval also, because, I mean, none of this stuff is gonna be official until the chairman signs it. So if that was a condition of approval, we could do the research, and if there was something else that was necessary, we could certainly have Ralph or Chris submit it. It shouldn't be a big deal.
On the salt storage.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, or if the condition was as generic as complying with a regulation, that's gotta be complied with anyways. It's like, then we're just talking about filling in the factual knowledge of what is the regulation we have to do instead of spelling it out, which is what you don't have, none of us have our arms around what that is
Right.
right now. So, do you mind, I mean, the condition, if it's generically just saying you gotta comply with what's
Yeah.
the laws, I mean, you
Yeah.
gotta comply with it anyways.
Right, you
Your
gotta
point.
reply anyway.
So, I mean, we wouldn't object to that condition, and we'll figure out what it is. Meanwhile, the wooden storage structure in this corner that Adam's gonna add to this,
Yeah.
it has an asphalt base now?
Yes.
Adam can note that on the plan, and we'll say salt storage arrow,
Yeah.
both will be on the plan.
Yeah.
That's what I intend to tell them.
Sounds good, right?
So,
Sorry.
Sounds good.
tell me how what's your, say out loud the, how the language should be that we're voting on?
That the applicant provide sufficient information to include building location on the plan, to confirm compliance with applicable salt storage.
And stormwater regulations.
Yes. Salt storage and stormwater. I think we should put applicable in there, just to make sure.
Yes, agreed,
In case we
that's
don't
fine.
find any. And Sarah, if you can make a note of whatever that was, I'd like to review it.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Or maybe you could send everybody a link.
Sure.
Thank you.
All right, well, I would certainly entertain a motion.
So let me just
Sure.
confirm, so, the conditions of approval, of which there are 3, is the depiction of salt structures with indication of use on the site plan, the narrative types of vehicles,
Did you,
Employees.
did you say, can you repeat number 1?
depiction of the salt storage structures.
Okay, so plural or singular?
Singular.
Singular, there's no S.
Oh, there's only one?
If I show one and you say S, you're gonna say, where's the other? And we're gonna say there is none, so let's not have an S on it.
With indication of use, narrative of types of vehicles and compliance with all applicable salt storage and stormwater regulations.
Go back to the narrative. The narrative is about
Of types of vehicles.
vehicles, like
Employees.
employees, and general statement of
Business
Okay.
owners.
business
Now,
Type
operations.
of business, yeah.
Everything that was
Natural
included in
business.
that other motion that you did
No, it's just
previously?
general description of business is what you said,
Mhm,
Karen.
mhm.
So,
And I would request that you add without it being an intention to limit vehicles and employees.
You're really worried about that,
I
huh?
am, and that's what my job is here. That's why he has me sitting here to the right-hand side of the house. If you would be willing to.
so the condition was basically what this motion was that you passed about to add to the application, the narrative, type of vehicles, number of employees, description of
Okay.
business, not with the intent to limit?
So I guess if that motion with those conditions has already been approved, then this is just one additional condition to be sure that the
But
salt.
it's a reiteration of the same thing?
Well, it doesn't, so, no, I guess we did approve all those conditions, so there's just the one additional condition
I
of,
didn't realize you were keeping track of them, so,
okay,
so that's good then, yes.
Right, it is.
What, yes, yes.
So then, I think we still need one more motion for the assurance that the salt storage meets all state and stormwater, and I thought there was a third word, state stormwater regulation, state something, applicable, state.
Applicable
Applicable.
salt storage and stormwater laws,
So are you
regulations.
doing it as a motion on its own or as a condition of approval?
It's an added condition of approval,
But
so we're making an addition, I am making an additional motion that we approve this additional condition of approval.
I don't think you need to make, I think you just add them.
Well, you can as far as the record goes, but, we need to vote on it, so it needs to be a motion to my mind, so I move it.
I understand you're gonna approve with 4 stated conditions of approval. Add the single structure, noting use and salt storage, narrative, don't embellish. What was the other one?
Compliance with all applicable salt storage and stormwater
Yep.
regulations? And what did you say was before?
But you're gonna look up the town wetland, stormwater.
Yes, we will inform you of what that means.
Thank you.
I guess just 3, add the structure, narrative, and, complying with applicable salt storage and stormwater.
Yes.
So there's 3.
So Luke Collins made a motion, we need a second.
I will second it.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. All right, so I believe at this point, I entertain a motion to approve the proposed site plan with all
Aforementioned waivers.
waivers and
discussed.
conditions of approval.
As-
And I will make that motion.
Okay, so second, all right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed, the ayes have it. Congratulations, Chairman.
Thank you.
Moving forward.
Yes. So that's it. I mean, I can leave.
You could have brought a
Oh, yeah, you
cake,
can
but
Make the house.
But I'm gonna call you, how many
Yeah.
trucks, how many?
Yeah, I like that. Thank you.
Sorry about it.
Good to see you. Yeah, I heard your voice, I'm like, I know who that is. You heard me sitting there for us.
You said, well, this is what's in now.
Oh, thank you.
See you, thanks, Dan.
Sarah, I have to make sure all this stuff gets in there.
You have the folder, I don't have it. It's all here.
Okay.
All right, yes, please.
My son just reminded me that we took a class, we're certified
Green Snow
salt applicators and storers, but by the state.
That we took probably 2 years ago, so we both took the class, got certified, so
Cool.
I just
Good job, and
Go with
thank you.
that.
Yeah, so we,
Good thing
that is a
to
nice footnote though.
Great, thanks, thank you very much. All right, next on the agenda is correspondence. Correspondence.
There's not.
So correspondence, all right.
Approve minutes of last meeting.
Yes, thank you, I skipped over that. Anyone with any comments on the correspondence?
On the minutes.
Minutes, I'm sorry, it's been a very long day.
No, I read them via email.
All right, do we need
Same here.
to approve them?
By consensus, yeah, whatever.
I move that we accept the minutes as
A second?
You can say-
That's it. All right, so, I'm gonna just, I think everyone's tired, I'm tired too, but I wanna, what's that?
Yes, I thought it was gonna be quicker than it was.
So I'm gonna just dip our toe in impact fees, all right? We're just gonna start and go very, so, this is what, how many of there are us, of us are there? I did 7. How many folks did I count?
Pretty good, well, we're 8 altogether.
Okay, so Caroline and I are gonna share. Well, it seems like I'm
No,
gonna have
sorry.
enough. What's that?
Yeah, we're 7, sorry, I can't count.
Maybe, actually I made just enough by sheer accident. So,
well, thank you.
so I just thought we'd start this conversation off. This is from the,
Dover.
City of Dover website, which I am not, suggesting necessarily that we imitate, but I did some minimal research today, given my schedule, and just by way of background, City of Lebanon has impact fees, Hampton has impact fees, Rochester via an article in a newspaper that I won't quote by name because my copyright issues. Rochester is considering impact fees. New Durham has impact fees.
New Durham.
And Durham.
New Durham?
And Durham, yes. And anyway, so why don't we just look at, and we're gonna spend 5 minutes tops on this. Why do we need impact fees? The city felt impact fees were a way to mitigate unintended consequences of growth. Fees are meant to pay for the impacts to capital facilities caused by development. The enabling legislation also requires that the fees only be used for the purposes for which they are calculated. And let's jump to when is the fee assessed. All impact fees shall be assessed prior to or as a condition for the issuance of a building permit or other appropriate permission to proceed with development as determined by the building inspector. And waivers are possible. So anyways, if we look at this, we can see sort of what Dover is charging for various types of development.
I like this sheet that you gave us. It's sort of a frequently asked questions, except in reverse. Like, the New Durham, where it's a smaller town similar to us, do you have the same sort of explanation of fees for that New Durham town? Because you had said Rochester, Lebanon, you said a lot of some cities.
Sure,
some
sure,
cities,
so-
but do you have something small from?
Sure, and this,
Because I'd like to have that.
and let me just, by the way, so, let me just jump around as I'm answering your question here. So, you see, Dover's got it laid out per housing type of unit. And then Lebanon, which you folks don't have because I ran out of time to make copies, but I won't bore you with, but for instance, Lebanon, and if we go further down this route, I'll give more copies, has impact fees per square foot. And so for a single family residence, they have 95 cents for school, 63 for recreation, 23 for police department, 21 cents per fire department, and et cetera, then all other housing units. And I'm just gonna go back to, jump around to Rochester as of an article May 22nd was going to do by comparison for a single family home, $1.87 per square foot. For schools, which is considerably higher, 19 cents for police, 57 cents for fire, and 32 cents for municipal officers.
Just ask a question.
Sure.
How do they arrive at the calculation to come up with these figures? How does anybody do that? I
Well-
mean, these are guidelines, I understand that very well. You know, these are just guidelines. But it's, you know, to me, it's like throwing darts.
I think, as I encouraged before, if we read in our zoning ordinance, it talks about the authority and applicability and the work that we have to do to get to this point.
Because they're not guidelines, they're absolute rules.
You have to be able to
in the
support and
community.
justify
Yes.
these numbers.
So,
You have to.
we're gonna have to come up with something.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right,
as
right.
as a board here and say, okay, this is how we decided to come up with this. That's a big deal.
Well, and it is, and again, that's why I said that I'm gonna stick our toe in it, because the more I looked at it, it is considerable, but I don't wanna be the, what's the old adage about, you know, the,
Day late, dollar short. I think that you have to, moving forward going, I think that we need to look into the future, and this is something that's gonna take some time.
yes,
But I see where John's going with it, is that it's sort of a bandwagon we may wanna get on, get ahead of it, so to speak. But there is quite a bit of administrative work, obviously, involved, but I don't think it's a waste of time by any means.
Oh, I don't either, I'm thinking of the various departments, the school, the police department, the town, you know, whatever department has to be kind of like fully engaged here. To come up with some kind
Well,
of,
maybe not, maybe it's something about just taking their gross annual budget and, you know, the statistic of, for example, how often do fires, does the fire department, respond to a single detached versus townhouse, you know, break it down. And then so you look at their gross annual budget, and then you look at their capital assets and how much, you know.
but they're
the
gonna have that
replacement-
information, we don't have it.
Well, sure, we have access to that, and we would have to look at that and provide access to all that, but, so it's the amount of use of each of those things, so a police, you know, replacing police cruisers and the officers for how much they respond to those kinds of units, how much would the impact be of an additional unit, whether it be a single-family dwelling or an apartment building or what have you. So you have to kind of take the whole impact of the whole budget, I guess, and divide it by existing structures maybe, and figure out what the impact for an additional structure would be. I guess it depends on the
Right, we would have to do some research to find out.
there are probably laws about how you calculate.
Oh, yeah,
that.
7421.
But it's not just, as
And
you
it's
see here, it's
in-
not just residential, it's other uses as well, non-residential.
Oh, yes, it could be. I mean,
Businesses,
yes,
what type of business,
yeah,
you know,
Right.
it's
Yeah,
quite
commercial,
involved.
right.
It's tough when you have a, volunteer board.
and the town
It
can,
gets tired after.
you know, I mean, we can just say, we'll do impact fees for education, police, fire, recreation. But it allows us to do water treatment, distribution facilities, wastewater treatment, public road system rights, I mean, it's,
And for those reasons, though, it's something that we almost have to do our due diligence to look into as expansion happens within
Yeah.
our town. I mean, that's inevitable.
yep,
And the other side too, the managing it, that this is, someone's gonna be responsible for
Absolutely.
where this money goes, how it's
Right.
tracked, what it's spent on, if it's returned, if it's not. And we had discussions on this, that
yeah,
you have to use it within an X period of time, that's to be
Really?
use specific.
yeah.
It's,
How do you see that playing out, Caroline, from your position? Keeping track of it, not gonna-
We have to create systems that we don't have. So I don't think we have to reinvent the wheel. There are plenty of other communities that do this, but we need to talk to them about how they do it and how well it works, and trying to adopt and modify those systems. Operating a system that exists is a lot less work than the creation of a system. And learning new things and creating and learning new processes. So it will take time. because you have to calculate this, it's one thing to, import somebody else's spreadsheet that you can put your own numbers in, but you still have to come up with these numbers, and then you have to, the other thing is, the numbers would change potentially annually, or every 5 years, or upon some kind of statutory requirement, I'm sure.
Yes.
So, once you're committed to doing it, you have to stay on top of it. But I do agree that it's an important thing to consider because we have huge swaths of land that will impact us greatly should they be developed all at once,
You put
which
a
is
burden on our
potential.
current infrastructure, and if we have no offsetting funds to help, it comes right back into the tax base. So I agree, it is important, I mean, I do,
But it's huge,
it's very huge.
because we're barely functional, like in some ways,
But we're barely
Well, what I
maintaining the
mean is,
master
like, for
plan.
example, you all saw the application for tonight, this afternoon. And that's because we still don't have a good process for making sure that, the planning consultants get all the copies of what, and are they paper, are they not paper, what do our applications look like? Are applicants really clear on the deadlines and what the fee structure is and what the checklist is? Like, we've got a lot of other work to do that, the office is not able to currently,
Purely from a staffing standpoint, that's
Well-
why these Dovers and these Nashuas, I mean, these bigger cities that
Right,
have bigger,
they have
bigger
resources to do these
resources,
things. Right,
more people,
That was my question to Caroline, how does she see it from her point of view?
which I'm
You know,
sure
being-
her workload's already,
Exactly.
never ending as it is.
So, I'm gonna go back to Kevin's question. By the way, the town of Chester also has impact fees. I think Chester's a smaller size town. New Durham, so New Durham, which I'm not sure what I saw it somewhere, the population, but I didn't print off the whole
They're
thing.
very similar to us.
Okay, so, and again, what I think, I just ran out of time, what I think I might do is start trying to pull out some of these various towns and put them on a single document we can look at, but, there,
Do you have two of those?
you can,
You just have the one.
but we can, so, for instance, for New Durham, they break it down elementary, middle school, and high school, but,
No kidding.
But no police, fire.
right, but they have a single family detached, they have, the elementary is $2,002, middle and high school is $2,417. And they have different amounts based on,
So that would mean they would have to know who the people are that are moving into these homes to charge them, whether it's an elementary or a high school?
Right, you're doing like a census survey when you
Yeah.
come in to fill a building permit, that's intrusive.
Yeah.
It is.
and
I'm
just,
not sure that's
Well,
legal.
isn't the fee like X goes to the grade school, X goes to the middle school, X goes to the high school?
But how do you decide if you're gonna
Yeah.
charge that, unless it's number of bedrooms? If it's a 3-bedroom, then you can charge 2 toward the school, but which are you picking? Like,
Well, like in Dover, all these categories, you pay everything.
right,
You don't not pay this because you don't have a.
right,
kid.
but when you're paying school is
So
general,
that-
school
what I'm
is.
saying is like, I think that they pay all 3 of those.
Mm.
That you don't have
Okay.
to say like, I have a grade school or I have a middle school or.
Right.
You
Okay.
pay all of those
It's a s-
because it's the overall impact.
$9,000 impact fees for a single family home in Dover.
Oh, let me tell you.
Yes, Sarah has
Here you go.
personal experience.
Just take a check. Wow.
I
That's a
think
tough sell.
the conversation was at least Augustine's going to the schools.
and I know this would be hard work, and, I'm not suggesting my idea should be followed through, but I'm worried about if we don't do something,
I appreciate your.
we're
I
just
do see
going
it
to,
more and more coming across our table.
So, I agree with you. My concern is that, the change in the office, the change in how administration happens in this town is still pretty new. And we have, as far as I'm concerned, we've not replaced the number of hours that select board members used to provide the town. So even though we have a 20-hour bookkeeper administrative assistant, we are, and I am full-time, that we are not providing the same number of hours of work in the office that we once enjoyed by volunteers, select board members who did operations in town, you know, on a consistent basis. And so now you have a select board that's full-time. So we're not quite where we need to be. I proposed to the select board a 5-hour increase in that administrative position, and they brought forth 2.5-hour increase to the budget committee, and I'm grateful for that, but you know, they have to balance all the requests and all the needs of the town. Even at that, there were a couple of comments about it at the budget public hearing. The town is, I think, still not really understanding what's happened in the office and what the current state is, what the needs are, and where the office is trying to get outside of this conversation. And yet, I'm on board with you, and I'm fully with you that this is really important, and I'd like to see this happen. I guess what I'm trying to say is, the public needs to see the value of it, and the public needs to support it by providing the staff that can make it happen, because it's not just the creating it, it's, you know, the implementation and the maintenance of it is gonna be not insignificant.
I agree, at this point with what's allowed, I just can't even imagine it, it's not possible. I mean, I hate to say that, but, you know, with current staffing standards and what's allowed for money to be spent on certain things, and the town has to approve it, obviously, that, you know, and anything budgetary, that's a mountain to climb.
So I think it hinges on that, and we ought to do public outreach and talk about the need and the risk and the value.
To sell it to the town first, the townspeople, that's the tough thing, but I see the value of it. I see the value of it,
Yeah.
clearly, with more and more coming on.
Yeah, I see this process, even if we were all today to say, yeah, great, taking months. I mean, this is gonna be, and we would have, just because we're exploring it doesn't mean it's gonna happen. The other thing I'd be happy to do is call up, you know, someone in the city of Dover, and that may not be the best place to call, but to say, how many hours does someone at the city of Dover, a much larger town, spend administering these kind of monies?
And if you prorate that
Or
for
New Durham.
population, then maybe you can break it down and see what the impact here would be. It might be more direct to talk about, you know, New Durham and I think Tamworth's our size, you know, and see if they can, what they have for administrative staff and how much time they allocate
Sure,
to
I
this,
mean-
and if they do it, it would be, I guess, what I'm saying is, it would be really interesting to see, I'm kind of processing out loud, it would be interesting to see, of the towns our size, who else does this? And how many hours of administrative staff do they have in their budget? So that, you know, and not that all of any extra staff is all about, you know, impact fees for sure. But they might be able to say how long they do, yes,
I'd
how
be interested
long
to
they
know how long
spend.
they've been doing it, how, you know, is this something New Durham started so long ago that it runs itself at this point in time, or?
It does, I think, make sense to check with the towns of similar size, because Dover, for instance, we collect the fees, the planning department collects the fees, and then gives them to the finance department. I don't know what they go after that. I mean, if we,
The planning board collects it? Did you say the
planning,
planning
no,
board?
the planning department.
The planning
Planning
department.
office, yeah. When we
They
issue a
collect
building
the
permit,
fees.
yes, oh yeah, we have an invoice that goes with the permit application, and then the fee has to be paid, and then, the office administrative assistants just bring it to the finance department. And they're the ones that do the depositing and keep track of the separate accounts,
Well, I can
and
see that.
disbursement and refund.
Is this mandatory? I mean, is this gonna become a mandatory thing? Is
No.
my question.
No, it's
So
in
this is
our
a-
ordinance already.
Well, hold the phone though, if we adopt it and
Oh.
create it, then it's mandatory, and then it's everybody, it's all
That's
on
what
The
there.
state's not requiring that we.
Okay, so
Yeah.
this is not something that's generally required, it's something
Correct.
that we can institute ourselves.
We're
Well,
trying to
yes,
do-
but once you do it
Then
across
it's
the board
mandatory.
for, yeah.
Yeah,
And it's
trying to
kind of
offset the
smart thing
fiscal
for a town
impact
to
of the
do.
town on any side development. It's a user fee, kind
It
of.
is, exactly.
Yeah.
But that's different when you're talking about a town that has a finance office, a planning office, you know,
Right.
and both those offices are staffed with assistants and, I mean,
Yes, but if you,
That's why Bill was.
you know, New Durham or What was
So
it?
just to indicate how far back some of these go, so Durham's
Yeah.
goes back to 2005. It's a long time ago. New Durham's, it says here the 2009 impact fee basis, which seems to me to indicate it may have been in existence before 2009, but at least as far back as 2009, which is 10 years ago.
That's pretty
But, I
good.
mean, they got it going, they made it happen. That's not that long ago, really.
And New Durham was a, less developed
New Durham or
area.
Durham?
Well, so I'm talking about both. Durham, 2005 to 2006, New Durham, 2009. So,
And New Durham's probably a small board, like us, planning board, that made it happen. But interesting to see what they have for resources and office-wise to make that happen.
and I'm happy to call some of these smaller towns and see if I can get some quotes.
Like, that's, I think, is a good target town to have discussions with, because they put it together. Wondering.
All right, well, thanks for entertaining me on that tonight.
Thank you for your work on it. It's really awesome.
Well, it's a
great
very,
starting
very
point.
small step for a very big project.
Yeah.
It's
So,
really
can we talk
cute.
about country scenic zoning now, or?
No, I'll work on that throughout the year, but that's, we're ready, we've all been an hour and a half, I appreciate everyone's time.
Do you need any other motions?
Oh,
What's the motion to adjourn?
I will make that
Second?
Second.
All right, all fair aye?
Aye.
Okay, thank you, everyone, thank you very much.
motion. I appreciate it, that's a lot of,
Well,
We spent a lot of time on that.
I'm not in there.
Awesome.
got more to go, more to go. Now I do my bit.
You want copies?
Huh?
Copies? I know that, like, if you're just,
I can do is I'll scan it in and email them, but why don't I give it to you?
Did you ever go to another small town? I took those